Hi guys, Asmo here, and today I have for you a very cool funky build. It is the Electrician Slayer. As you can see, we're playing a Galvanic Arrow bow build, but it's a miner and it's on a Slayer. It's a very interesting build that is basically inspired by this node here that says Galvanic Arrow and Storm Rain repeat an additional time when used by a mine. Storm Rain unfortunately has a hard cap of 100 arrows, which we would reach very quickly, but Galvanic Arrow is something that is benefiting from the repeats very well. It's already a good single target skill, so naturally I thought I'm gonna make a little bosser character. And I already killed Maven, I killed Elder Guardians, Shaper Guardians, Invitations. It's really good at blasting essences instantly, and anything where we can like preload damage is basically just like any other miner character gonna have a ton of damage. We have like up to like 35 million, I think, single target DPS if I use the chain of the detonations properly and use my bottled faith with the increased effect, which is something that I can, for example, do on bosses, right? So this character is very fun to play, very wonky, fun idea, and I'm basically in this video going to go over all of the gear, all of the mechanics, gems, and hopefully stuff that you can learn from, some very interesting interactions that can be used in different builds as well, that I didn't know that they work even like that before I tried to make this character. So hopefully this is going to be educational, and you're going to also see some footage from this character conquering some of the end game. So the bow was the first thing that I crafted, because I knew that if I don't craft the bow, then I cannot basically play the build, so that's the main requirement. So I spent like over 20 divines trying to get this tree to be correct. This is Galvanic Arrow and Storm Rain repeat an additional time. Then we have socketed gems are supported by level 10 Fist to Lightning, so this is basically a 7-link bow that gives me 100% conversion, because we get the remaining conversion from the skill gem itself, from the Galvanic Arrow, because it already converts 50%, so this gives me the other 50%, plus some extra added. Then we have 10% pen, which is a nice multiplier. Speaking of multipliers, we had 100% global crit multi, which is absolutely insane. And then it gives me -3 to critical strike chance. However, because I'm playing Slayer, we have the Overwhelm node, which gives me 8% base crit on a weapon no matter what. So even though this is 3%, my base crit is actually 8%, making it very easy to reach 100% crit chance and capping our crit. And then we also have some flat damage here. The choice of the bow was also very important, because I don't care about attack speed, because I'm throwing the mines. I'm throwing like 7 mines per second, right? So mine throwing speed completely bypasses your attack speed. Your attack speed doesn't matter, your crit doesn't matter, so we can pick the base with just the highest flat damage period on it. So we got the Citadel bow and crafted on that. If I swap this bow, even though this is just like very simply crafted bow, if I would swap this bow for a mirror crafted bow, like mirror physical or mirror tier elemental bow, the best bows that currently exist in the game, I would actually lose about 40% damage, right? And that's not even accounting for the Galvanic Arrow thing, right? So this is a bow that is very specifically tailored for this character, for this build. That's why these specific choices, like the base and the nodes on the skill tree. For crafting the bow itself, it was pretty simple, but if you're interested in the base, by the way, I have the other base because I split it, so I'm selling it for 19 divines if you want to play this build. But that's just like a side note. So how did I craft this build, this bow? I basically spammed essences. I found out later that you can actually fracture and then still like if you fail, you can recover the tree, so you don't actually have to make more trees. I didn't know at that time, but if I was to fracture something, I would probably fracture like Merciless or something, like T1 increased physical damage, just after like out spamming it and regaling and stuff like that. It would maybe be too annoying to get, so I'm actually happy I crafted it this way. You can also fracture like the T1 lightning, you can fracture crit multi, you can fracture something like double damage or something like that. That would work very well as well for this build, but I basically rolled it with essences. I happened to hear T1 flat fizz and then a crit multi. I was hoping to hit like T3 flat fizz, T3 increased fizz, and then craft suffixes from there. But since I hit the crit multi on the suffix, I managed to actually do attacks, control attack modifiers, and deterministically annul a suffix. And it was 50-50 between the crit multi and there was a projectile speed as well. So I annulled the projectile speed and crafted the rest from the bench. And this is a perfectly good bow. We got good amount of damage. We got crit multi, which is what we need. We got 100% crit, so it's a great multiplier. And then we got the mine throwing speed, which is also important for us. So that's basically it for the bow. When it comes to the gems, we're using the Galvanic Arrow, we're using High Impact Mine, we're using Awakened Lightning Penetration, which gives us an exposure, which is super important. Then we got Divergent Charged Mines. Divergent one gives you some extra projectile speed, and the projectile speed can also give me damage from our passive tree. And then we've got Awakened Elemental damage with attacks, and we've got Trap and Mine damage. If you go to POB, you'll actually notice that Barrage support is like, looks like it's the best support, but it is not. The reason why it is not is because all the multipliers don't apply to it, and those are the repeats, right? So if I put this skill, you're actually gonna notice that it looks absolutely insane, right? Because the barrage makes it like glitch out and attack so quickly. However, you don't get all of the repeats. Like basically, repeat it gets added as a projectile, right? Because this skill already has like repeats. It doesn't work. The repeats are additive, not multiplicative with each other. So that's why this doesn't work. Because this repeat from the bow, that is basically 100% more multiplier, and then this repeat from the Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh, which allocates Fatal Flourish, that's basically 160% more damage multiplier, because it gives you extra repeat, which is 100% more damage, and then also 60% more damage on the last repeat, right? So we're getting roughly 260% more damage. It's not exactly like an exact multiplier, so it's an approximation, so don't worry too much about the POB damage that it shows here. This is simply an approximation, because I could, if I put the Fatal Flourish gems here, this is not going to calculate it correctly, because it assumes the calculation as if you were self-casting, right? So it's 30% more multiplier, just like it is for regular attacks. So for regular attacks, this calculates it correctly, but for this specific skill with the mines, it does not, right? However, in the skill gems, Barrage would still show as the highest DPS, but it is actually not. So that's why that explains the POB. But yeah, DPS doesn't really matter that much. This is anyway, like if you detonate the chain correctly, normally you're gonna have a little bit less damage than that. But anyway, so that's about the main skill gem. Let's talk about the other gems that we are using. So we're using Enlighten with Skitterbots, Determination, and Grace. So just simply 2 defensive aura, 1 offensive aura. Skitterbots are slightly better than Wrath. One of the main reasons for that is that we have a lot of flat damage coming from the jewels in the chest. Before putting all of these flat jewels, if I had a different chest, then Wrath would be potentially better than Skitterbots. But then you also have to solve for the mana, because it's already pretty difficult, considering that our mine skill reserves mana, right? So even though we're picking these passives for reservation efficiency, we are still like perfectly calculated just to have enough mana to cast everything. And the important thing about the supports that we're using also is that with the High Impact Mine, the difference between High Impact Mine and the other mine support gem is that this one has an aura tag, which means aura reservation, for example, efficiency applies to your mines, right? So the regular reservation efficiency that you're getting from charisma and the things that you're getting from the influence wheel, right? This reservation efficiency actually applies to your mines, right? I have checked this on POB, and it's very, very nice, because that way we are able to fit everything even easier by investing a little bit in it. Like for example, on this helmet that has 22 mana reservation efficiency of skills, right? So that is really, really nice. So that's what we're using for our auras. Then we also have Anomalous Bear Trap, and we have Arcanist Brand with Conductivity and Assassin's Mark. So that allows us to get out of crit multi. It allows us to get to reduce the effect of resistances, right? Reduce the resistances on our enemies and increase their damage taken. So this is basically standard setup for any like miner or trapper character. Then I also have a Molten Shell with cast when damage taken, because we got a bunch of armor. We got like 22k armor. And then we got also Flame Dash. So this character is not very mobile. I could add something else for mobility here. But yeah, the character is not very mobile. Probably should put Phase Run or something, but we already have Detonate Mines on left click most of the time, so it doesn't really fit. And then let's talk about the gear choice, right? So you already know about the bow, but why do we have this chest? So I checked different chests, basically went into the POB and looked at different stuff, and picking this chest helps a lot with the build. So first of all, adding flat damage is really, really good because we have already a lot of multipliers. So that's why that's one of the reasons. Secondly, it can also help you get things like chance to avoid being shocked for the ailment immunity. It can help you fix resistances. It can help you fix any attributes that you need, but it does put some pressure on spell suppression because I am 100% spell suppression capped. We got 100% spell suppression, we got 100% ailment avoidance, we are overcapped on resistances, and we got 70 chaos res as well, right? So we got the basic defenses, right? We got 20k evasion, 20k armor, so the character has just like very basic defenses, and it has a good recovery as well. So it's basically like decently well-rounded, but in order to get this spell suppression, I did need to get like T1 fractured items. However, I crafted them. I crafted all of my items except for the bow in like an hour on my stream like a couple days ago. For the helmet, let's finish the chest. Okay, so the chest basically is the best damage increase that I found on available on the POB, because none of the other like unique chests really help with this archetype. It's a very, very weird archetype of a build, so just adding a lot of flat damage helped the most. So that's why this chest. And plus we don't need any other setup, right? I don't need another 6 link for my auras or for any other extra skills, so I have a lot of free sockets, so I can utilize them to instead just add a lot of damage. The other item slots are the Machina Mitts. The Machina Mitts give me +1 frenzy charges, which gives me just damage multiplier plus trap throwing speed as well. And then it also gives me the leech, right? So 1% of the damage dealt by mines is leeched as life. And because we're playing Slayer, this is actually counted for our overleech. So you actually have overleech as a miner. So not only we have some regen from nodes like this, for example, that gives me 2.5% life per second regenerated if I detonated a mine recently, but I also have regen, so I have very comfy recovery, and also 10% reduced damage taken while leeching helps to add a little bit to the tankiness. So that's a very, very cool combination that we're using. Then for the helmet, I'm using simply something that I luckily crafted, but you can craft it pretty easily. Basically you need spell suppression fracture on a helmet. I enchanted this myself. I was running lab, actually made a ton of money running lab for this enchant, but you can give it to a lab runner, or you can try to find something from the trade. And then we crafted it with the mana reservation essence, and then you can eldritch craft very easily some armor, evasion, and life on the prefixes, and on a suffix you want to craft mind throwing speed. And then we also have reduced mana cost of attacks, which helps to reduce the cost of our attacks, so it's only 4 mana, and increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. So the mana reservation efficiency is super useful. That's why we are running with this helmet. For the boots, another very simple, very basic craft that everybody should be familiar with. Basically, you get boots with a fractured suffix like suppression. You can also go for any other resistances or chaos res. Then you craft it with an essence, chance to avoid being shocked until you hit the other, like the third suffix, ideally like a T1 resistance. And then you do Wild Bristle Matron from the bestiary to craft suffixes cannot be changed because it's the only meta mod on the prefixes, and you only have available prefixes, so you pay 1 divine instead of 2 divines for the meta mod. And then you do something like Ashling, or you do something like a Veiled Chaos Orb, block mana, unveil movement speed, craft life. And then for the implicits, we got like Fizz as extra lightning, for example, while Pinnacle boss is in our presence to increase the boss damage. You can also have something else there. You can have like regen there. And I also have action speed because that actually applies to mind throwing speed. And for enchants, you can either go with penetration because we are not killing. So this condition where if you haven't killed recently applies to me even while mapping, right? So, but I looked at POB and the penetration actually was giving me less damage than the flat. That's how powerful like flat damage is on this. So that's why this is a good choice of a chest. And so I went with the flat damage because that actually gave me more. So again, boots self-crafted, helmet self-crafted. Then we needed also to solve the accuracy issue. And accuracy is, you could get it on a helmet, but it's better to get it on jewelry because then you can apply catalysts, attack catalysts apply to that. And so you can see, for example, this amulet that I crafted, I got an amulet for like 100 chaos with the accuracy fracture on it, T1 accuracy fracture. which is close to top roll, but not quite. But I needed to have strength and intelligence on it for my attributes. Then I basically spammed essences for lightning damage with attacks. It's the same essence. I don't know if I still have some of them. Let's see. It's this one. Yeah, it's the Deafening Essence of Torment. So I spammed that essence until I got increased elemental damage with attack skills and life on prefixes. It's pretty hard to get high tiers of them, so I was just happy with T3 and T4 because the flat damage and the increased elemental damage as well as accuracy are all three increased by the catalyst, so it's pretty efficient to get all of them. And then what we do is we craft prefixes cannot be changed and reforge crit, and it gives us 50-50 between crit chance and crit multi, and if you hit crit multi, then it's 50-50 to get like at least tier 3. So you get 25% chance to get at least tier 3 crit multi. I got it the first try, and then basically crafted the mind throwing speed as the last modifier. And that was basically it. That was the amulet plus anointed charisma, so that we can have all of our auras fitting. Similar thing happened with the ring. I also had accuracy fractured on this, and then I was crafting it with the critical strike multiplier essence, right? So that would be, I think this one, yep, Deafening Essence of Scorn, global crit multi, and I did it until I hit a T1 res of any kind, and that was my, those were my suffixes, and I luckily also hit increased elemental damage with attack skills. So then I just crafted life without doing any ashling or any shenanigans like that, and that's a great ring. And then we got another ring. I got Fractured Strength, T2, because T1 are actually very expensive because people craft Omni, but I wanted to make sure that I don't have fractured resistance on it because I wanted the ability to flip resistances with Harvest just to mix and match with the rest of my gear. So that's why instead of getting fractured res, I still wanted to get the strength, but I didn't need T1. That's all I needed. So I got a T2, crafted it again with crit multi essences until I hit the other suffix for lightning res, and then I just did Bristle Matron to unlock the suffixes, right? Suffixes cannot be changed. Veiled Chaos Orb, block mana, unveil life, craft the mana cost, and then you need at least 15% with the life and mana catalyst quality in order to push the -7 to total mana cost to -8 to total mana cost. And then I bought the quiver because I never craft quivers. Apparently, I don't know, I just always look for quivers on trade before I craft them because it's really annoying to craft quivers. I also don't need extra projectiles. It doesn't do anything for me. I don't need a lot of the things that other people need. So I got this quiver. It had one missing prefix, one missing suffix. So I crafted the suffix, exalted the prefix, got extra face damage, and that is totally fine. I just needed the res and some flat damage on this. And then we also have a Mage Blood because I have a Mage Blood, but the Mage Blood mainly solves things like it gives me the crit, right? So I got extra crit from it, and that was the only offensive thing that it does for me. And then it gives me a bunch of chaos resistance, so it makes my character significantly tankier, gives me curse immunity, and then gives me some extra armor. It actually doesn't give me that much, but it's just very, very comfortable to use that I don't have to use the flasks, and I have it all available even while bossing. It's of course amazing belt for bossing if you're gonna do any kind of a bossing activity. If you don't have Mage Blood, then I recommend a Stygian Vice, where you're gonna put another jewel, which is gonna help you fix your resistances, your attributes. Potentially you can have Chaos Res. You can craft Stygian Vice with Chaos Res essences until you get something decent, and that's what I would recommend instead of Mage Blood. All right, now let's go over the skill tree. So the skill tree is pretty interesting. In terms of Ascendancy, I already talked about the Overwhelm, which gives us crit multi and the 8% base crit chance, which is amazing. Already talked about the Overleech, which is also awesome because we benefit from that. Then we've got 20% more damage against unique enemies, right? So more damage against bosses. And then we also have 20% Calling Strike. So the Calling Strike is amazing. It actually applies from your mines because it says kill enemies that have 20% or lower life when hit by your skills. And mines and Galvanic Arrow is your skill. It's not you. If it said hit by you, then it wouldn't work. But because it says by your skills, then it works with the mines. So we actually are getting the full 20% calling from that. So we have a really, really nice Ascendancy, and it's the best choice by far for this build. We're pathing super far away. We're taking a lot of travel nodes in order to get into this area, because this is where all the good stuff is for our build. So we are suffering a little bit from this inefficiency here, this big inefficiency, but there's no really other way around it. I chose to play this meme build, so I have to suffer for it and pick these travel nodes. So I'm using Storm Shroud to get my ailment avoidance to 100%. Then we're picking up a bunch of spell suppression nodes. So we get spell suppression here, and then a little bit here in order to cap it to 100%. We're using some extra jewels in here. And on the jewels, basically what we want is flat lightning to attacks, flat lightning to bow attacks, fizz, crit multi, life, resistances, attributes, and then you want one jewel with a chance to avoid being shocked. And also you want one jewel with corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. That's basically what you want on the jewels. That's what all of them have. Regen is nice, I guess. The regeneration of mana per second helps me sustain my mana a little bit, because I'm like borderline, like I'm right on the edge of like sustaining the mana, so I'm good. And there we've got some crit multi. Then we've got also this is a really cool node. This makes me actually cap my accuracy against bosses, because normally it does say that I have 100% accuracy rating. Let me shoot a skill. Offense, oh yeah, it does say that I have 100% accuracy rating. However, against bosses on POE, it's pinnacle bosses, it says that I doesn't. However, after picking this mastery, now I do, right? If you have more accuracy, you could pick, for example, marked enemy cannot deal critical strikes, and that's gonna make you crit immune as well. But it's a very, very good wheel. It gives you a lot of damage anyway, because this is marked enemy takes 10% increased damage. Really, really good. Then we've got more accuracy and crit here. We've got frenzy charges, power charges. We're benefiting from both of them. Another jewel with some life, flat, and res. And then we've got these mine nodes. We got crit nodes. This is actually pretty useful. Mines have increased detonation speed. Is actually very useful, and can have up to 3 additional remote mines placed at a time. Is also useful. Gives you some extra multipliers. Mines cannot be damaged. Then we also have crit chance against enemies with lightning exposure. That's really useful because we do expose enemies, so that's really, really good as well. Each mine applies 2% increased damage taken to enemies near it. That potentially also scales with aura effect, but I'm not 100% sure how, because it is an aura and it should scale with aura effect, but I'm not 100% sure. And then we also have Whispers of Doom for the second curse, crit chance against shocked enemies because we do shock. Then we have a large cluster. I had a medium cluster here, but because not being able to fit the mana and wanting to get another mine mastery, I decided against the medium cluster jewel and went just with this, which gives me the extra reservation, chance to be detonated additional time. So it's like extra damage, extra reservation, and then also 2.5% regen, which is actually a very large amount for a single point. And then we've just got disorienting display, overshock, and storm drinker being like the most powerful node on this one, together with like overshock and the forbidden flesh and flame. And that's basically it. That's the character. It's a very, very fun character. I had a lot of fun crafting the items for it, and it was really cool to see it in action, killing bosses. It's honestly just a hilarious character, and I find this MTX set to actually be super fitting for the character, because just like a weird electrician technician slayer. It's like Slayer who decided to go to school and actually learn a trade and made something of himself, and so he uses bows and electricity to kill enemies instead of just using a sword or something, right? So it's a very, very cool theme and a cool character. Hopefully you learned something from this video. It's a pretty meme of a character. However, I managed to make it decent, right? It has decent survivability. It can do all the content in the game. If you're good at the game, you can do Ubers with it. If you suck at the game, nothing is gonna help you. Pastron recently made a video where he addresses that. That was like an important point that I agree with. Ubers are basically half gear check, half skill check. So both of these things are very important, and this build, somebody can do Ubers with it and somebody cannot, right? So that's an important thing to take into consideration, but it can do all the content in the game. I had lots of fun with it. It was a very fun project, and now it's probably going to be time to move on to something else. I got some cool ideas in mind, and I'm going to be testing them on stream, so you can check out my stream at twitch.tv/usmodelstream. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.